She calls him sir. He calls her Mary. Every single morning she sweeps the floor before sunrise, cooks his meals exactly how he likes them, and washes his clothes until they smell like fabric softener and obedience. But when the sun goes down and the neighborhood falls silent, she doesn't sleep in the maid's quarters. She sleeps beside him, in his bed, under his roof, in his world. In a country where over 2 million women work as domestic helpers, a silent reality unfolds behind closed doors. A reality shaped by desperation and desire, by money and loneliness, by the razor-thin line between love and survival. Before we meet Mary, you need to understand her world. In the Philippines, hiring a live-in maid isn't a luxury reserved for the wealthy. Middle-class families do it. Even lower middle-class households scrape together enough to hire help. These women, and they're almost always women, cook, clean, do laundry, take care of children, elderly relatives, and sometimes even pets. They live under the same roof as their employers. They eat the leftovers. They sleep in cramped quarters, sometimes without windows. And they do it all for as little as 3,000 to 10,000 pesos a month. That's roughly $50 to $180 per month for working every single day. Most of these women come from the provinces, forgotten towns where opportunities are as scarce as electricity. They're daughters of farmers who can barely feed their families. Daughters of fishermen who lost their boats to typhoons. Single mothers with children to feed and no father in sight. So they leave. They travel to Manila, Cebu, and Davao, cities that promise wages and survival. But survival comes with a price. Once they enter a household, they enter a power structure. The employer controls everything: their schedule, their salary, their freedom. In some homes, they're treated like family. In others, they're treated like shadows. And in a few, they become something else entirely. It's a life of silence and obedience, where saying no can cost you your job, and saying yes can cost you everything. Mary was 22 when her world changed. She had been working as a helper in her hometown of Ormoc, Leyte, cleaning houses, babysitting, and doing laundry for neighbors. But the pay was terrible. 2,500 pesos a month, barely enough to send home to her mother and 2 younger siblings. Her father had died 3 years earlier. Diabetes, no insurance, massive debt. Mary became the provider by default. When her cousin told her about a job in Manila, 8,000 pesos a month, private room, foreign employer, Mary didn't hesitate. She packed her life into a single duffel bag and boarded a 20-hour bus ride to the capital. Her employer was a man named Paul, 54 years old, American, a retired IT consultant who had been living in the Philippines for 8 years. Widower. Paul had loved his wife deeply. After she died from cancer 2 years earlier, he stayed in the Philippines. He said it was because life was cheaper here. But the truth was simpler. He didn't want to go back to an empty house in Ohio. At first, everything was strictly professional. Paul showed her around. Your room is here. The kitchen is there. I usually eat breakfast at 7. He was polite, distant, formal. Mary cleaned, cooked adobo and sinigang the way he liked, and stayed in her small room at night. But loneliness is a powerful thing, and proximity, even more so. It started small. Paul began talking to her during meals, Not orders, conversations. He asked about her family, her hometown, and her dreams. Mary was surprised. Most employers barely acknowledged her existence. But Paul listened. He told her about his late wife, how they met in college, how she loved gardening, how he still missed her voice. Mary listened. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. And for Paul, that was enough. Weeks turned into months. Paul started giving her extra money. 500 pesos here, 1,000 there. 1,000. He bought her a smartphone so she could video call her family. He took her to the mall and told her to pick out clothes. "You can't keep wearing the same 2 shirts," he said. Mary protested, but Paul insisted. She felt something shift. This wasn't her employer anymore. This was someone who saw her, someone who cared. And then came the night that changed everything. A blackout swept through the neighborhood. The air conditioning died. The heat became unbearable. Paul told Mary she didn't have to sleep in her room. It was like an oven without the fan. He offered his room. The bed was big enough. He'd stay on his side. She hesitated, but the heat was suffocating. So she agreed. That first night, nothing happened, but the barrier had been crossed. The distance had disappeared. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. Now, before we continue, if you find this story interesting, could you please like the video? This means a lot to me, and I appreciate every single like on this video. Thank you. Within a month, Mary had moved into Paul's room permanently. It wasn't discussed. It just happened. She still cleaned, still cooked, still did laundry. But now she also shared his bed, held his hand while watching TV, kissed him goodnight. Paul gave her more money, 15,000 pesos a month now. He paid for her mother's medical bills, sent her siblings to school. In return, Mary gave him warmth, loyalty, and the illusion of a life not lived alone. In Filipino society, these arrangements exist in whispers. Everyone knows about them. No one admits to them. Some call it companionship. Others call it benefits. But beneath the surface lies an uncomfortable truth. In a country where poverty runs deep and opportunities are scarce, affection becomes currency. Loneliness becomes leverage, and the line between love and transaction becomes impossible to see. For Mary, it wasn't manipulation, it was safety, security, maybe even affection. For Paul, it wasn't exploitation, it was companionship, connection, perhaps even love. But was it real? Or was it just two people filling voids they couldn't fill alone? 6 months passed. Paul stopped calling her Mary. He called her baby now. Mahal. Sweetheart. He took her to restaurants, nice ones where foreigners and wealthy Filipinos ate. He introduced her as his girlfriend, not his maid, his girlfriend. Mary felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride, worth. Like she wasn't just someone's helper. Like she was someone's person. But beneath the surface, the power imbalance remained. Paul owned the condo. Paul paid the bills. Paul controlled her world. And Mary knew. One argument, one mistake, one moment of disappointment, and it could all disappear. She loved him, or at least she believed she did. But how do you separate love from gratitude? How do you know if you're staying because you want to, or because you have to? That's the question Mary never dared to ask, until she didn't have a choice. It happened on a Tuesday. Paul's daughter in California found photos on Facebook. Photos of Mary, sitting on Paul's lap, smiling in his condo, wearing the clothes he bought. His daughter called him. Furious, she screamed, accused him of dishonoring her mother's memory, called Mary a gold digger, a user. Worse. Paul tried to explain. But how do you explain loneliness to someone who's never been alone? How do you defend a relationship built on circumstances no one else can understand? That night, Paul told Mary they needed to talk. He said his family was upset. He said things were complicated. He said maybe she should find somewhere else to stay. Mary didn't argue. She didn't cry, not in front of him. She packed her things in silence. Paul handed her 5,000 pesos. She took it, and she left. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. Mary's story isn't unique. Across the Philippines, thousands of women live parallel lives. Some fall in love with their employers, some are manipulated, some end up pregnant, abandoned, or trapped, and some find something real amid the imbalance. It's a cycle born from inequality. Poverty forces women into service. Loneliness drives men to seek comfort. And the system creates relationships where love and dependence become indistinguishable. Mary returned to Leyte. She found work in a local restaurant. The pay is worse, but she's free. She still sends money to her mother. She still checks her phone late at night. Paul still texts her sometimes. How are you? I hope you're okay. I miss you, she replies. Briefly, politely, but neither of them says what they really mean. In the end, the story of Maid-with-Benefits isn't about scandal. It's about two lives colliding in unequal worlds. It's about what people do when love is mixed with need, when comfort comes at a cost, when affection is both genuine and transactional. She was hired to clean. He was looking for peace. And somewhere in between, they both found something that felt like love. So, what was it? Love? Or survival? Exploitation? Or connection? The truth is, it was all of it. It was two people colliding in unequal worlds. If you like this story, then you should love our latest series titled Tour Guides with Benefits. Do watch it.